Zoom. Not me. The two Zoom guys. Shit. Okay, I haven't prepared a speech or something. Of course, it's written in the program that Mr. Larry will give a welcome remarks, but then I will save it for tomorrow, as we are all here tomorrow. First of all, my name is Larry Macaulay. I'm the convener of this conference, and it's a pleasure to have you all here. Thanks a lot for coming. Yes, we have so much issues today, technical issues, but this is the first day we will solve this. By tomorrow, we get better. I think the first talk, the film, first of all, of Sara Creta, Libya, No Escape from Hell. Fantastic film, and we have Sara here she's doing selfie now, so we have Sara here to talk to us about our work, our film, and we have distinguished guests from the Cultural and Media Behörde in Hamburg. Thanks a lot, Laura, Miss Laura. Thanks for coming. It's not easy, but it's nice to see everybody. I see Asha. I've not seen her in 5 years. I see Mama. I thank you all. I see my friend Nima, the colleagues from Berlin. So I'm really happy. My colleagues, thanks for supporting to make it happen. So welcome. Let's have a fantastic talk. I wouldn't take much of your time. Thank you so much. We have two guests in the United States of America who will join us by Zoom. Vik Sohonie is a Grammy-nominated music artist. And we also have AwaMeite from Mali, who is going to join us. She's a fashion designer and an activist. Thank you very much. We look forward to it. I pass it over to Miss Nadine Jessen. Thank you.
Yeah, hello, and also a super warm greetings from me. I'm very honored to moderate this panel within the Conference on Migration and Media Awareness. Thank you, Larry, for making this conference happen. I know it's been challenging. My name is Nadine Jessen. I'm a dramaturg here at Kampnagel, International Center for Fine Arts, based in Hamburg. So in the next little bit more than 1 hour, we will reflect how arts and culture can be helpful tools to decolonize cultural spaces, for example, also spaces like Kampnagel here, typical black boxes, or the white cubes of galleries, how to turn exclusive fashion into inclusive design, how music can create collective memory, and we will find out how words and visuals are also weapons when it comes to create more empathy, to create change in societies. So we want to examine how art and culture can be seen a little bit through activist point of view. Due to the pandemic situation, we have a hybrid panel. So as Larry already mentioned, 2 of our guests are joining via Zoom. 2 guests are here with me on spot. That all of you get a good idea of the background of each person before we start a discussion altogether. Each guest will have like round about 10 minutes to describe a little bit the background and their own individual artistic practice. So, are the Zoom guests already there? Ah, perfect. Hello. Nice to see you. Here we have Meité. Unfortunately, you couldn't come here and present your work in a fashion show, so instead of watching your works, we will talk about decoloniality and fashion. And for you, local materials and local business has been important long time before it became an international fashion trend. So please tell us about your pioneer work.
Thank you, and I'm really happy to be part of this panel. I think that fashion is a way to resist, to share, and to express our contribution to the building of a better world, of a world with justice, with equity. And it's not just aesthetic, because for a long time, Africa has been seen as exotic. And exotic, I think, is a bit condescending. And we want to change that vision. We are not just a source of inspiration for the fashion industry. We have knowledges, we have materials, we have ideas, and we have people. Because in the debate today, people need to be in the center of everything. Money, power have been a long time the only issue. And with the pandemic, we are seeing a lot of change. We have to rethink the world. We have to rethink the way we react, the way we deal with one another, and the way we see the vision of the world. How to make to grow together. Today we see that solidarity is a necessity. And the interdependence of the world is an actuality. It is a present issue. So I think that fashion and culture is very important in this aspect because it is a universal language. I'm from a country where more than 60% of people cannot read or write. But the people I'm working with, despite the fact that we call them not educated, which I think that is not the right word, because education is large. Education is cultural appropriation. Education is training. It is understanding. Education is a lot. And in terms of education, we have a lot to bring to the rest of the world. So reading and writing, it is important, but it is not the only way to be educated. So the people I'm working with, most of them cannot read or write, but I'm learning from them because most of them are weavers, they are dyers. So I'm learning a lot from them in terms of climate change, in terms of cotton, in terms of how craft is linked to the reading, to the way we see the world, to the way we apprehend our own reality. So I think that it's very important to share that. And that's the reason why I'm so involved in fashion. I'm not involved in fashion in the classic way. I'm involved in fashion to show what my community, what my people, what my country have, the wealth my country have in terms of aesthetic, in terms of knowledge, in terms of being ourselves, in terms of assuming who we are, because that is really important today with the medias and the way with internet, and you have so many informations coming from all over the world, and you have to see everything with your prism, with your own understanding of the world. And sometimes when people can read, can write, and people like me, we have been traveling around the world, so we understand differently from people who never left the country. But sometimes we see the same images, but we don't have the same interpretation of it. So it is really important to educate people, but to educate ourselves also, to have the same vision, to have the same goals, and to show that one culture, one knowledge is not above another one. We are complementary. The complementarity is very important today because it is what will make us stronger with respect and help people live in dignity. because fashion also is an industry. It is economically important. But how do we make fashion today? The challenge is huge. How do you produce? How can you make it sustainable? How can you work and not pollute? How can today Africa is my country and more few countries in Africa are the places where everything, all the garbage from Europe is coming. It is called, we call it yugu. Yugu is old clothes people use in Europe, in the US, and we have only that in our markets because consumering, people consume, and nothing lasts because one season after one season you have to buy. You have the publicity, the medias are aggressive. They make you want things you don't need. They make you want to be someone you're not. They want you to think you are in a canvas. They want you to think a certain way. You don't have any more choice because television, radio, music, the industry is very strong. And when you are a part of it, you feel like an outsider and you feel like you don't exist. We have to change that way of thinking because we exist with what we have. We exist with what we are rich from what we have, from what we know, from what we learn also from others. But we need to have the choice to say, this is what I want to have from others, and this is what I want to share. And today the choice is very complicated. But the pandemic is putting all that together because we are seeing the weakness of the world. We've never faced such a situation. And you see the weakness. You also feel moved by what is going. You feel concerned by your neighbor, by another country. You feel concerned with, and you want to share things in order to be stronger together. And I think that for me, fashion is like a conclusion of all that. Because in fashion, you have the colors, you have the music, you have the light, and you have the hands that are making it. You have the people behind it. And that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your input. Okay, we will continue the conversation also with you, but first I would now switch to Sara, who is here with me. Vik, later, after Sara, we come to you. Sara, you work as a journalist, but you are also doing documentary films. So words, facts, and a camera lens are your tools to unveil the truth, even if it's a brutal one, like in the film we just saw today. Did you choose empathy as a tool for raising awareness?
Thank you again, Larry, and everyone tonight to be here with us. And also thank you for raising this question. I think it's very important for me to say that as a filmmaker and a journalist, I see that my art is a form of rebellion, is also a form of resistance, you know, against mainstream media, against narratives that are out there, against the way that they want us to see the world. So when I go in Libya or when I...
Or not to see, no?
Yeah,
you
or
show
not
the
to
things
see. Exactly.
also that usually many people close their eyes, right?
When they don't give us visa to report, when they prevent us with access to detention center. So when I have my camera and I can enter these spaces, I'm not just lucky because I can witness this, but I hold my camera and I can record. That's for me the rebellion I'm mentioning, you know, the weapon I have in my hand. And as a filmmaker, I also feel that I have a source of like trust within the community that I'm embedded, right? And that's why I think it's really, really important when we work in certain part of the world or when we report about you know, this situation where human dignity is denied or where human rights violations are so prevalent, to remember those community, right? And try to move away from this kind of pornography of sufferance, just to portray, right, those women that were raped. And I remember once I was in Bangladesh in a Rohingya camp in Kutupalong. It was a region where millions of Rohingya were arriving. And there was a journalist from BBC talking with her fixer, asking, where is the woman that was raped and she speaks English? That was the story, right, that she was trying to sell. So again, I think it's important to go back to the reason why do we go to these communities, why do we hold our camera, and what is the unwritten relation that we have with the people we film and with what we want to say. And that's why I think it's important to keep this in mind, not just because we need to involve community in every single step of our work, from writing, editing, and so, but because those community need to feel represented, and also that their struggle is represented. And that's why I think in my film I wanted to include their struggle, their seek for visibility, the endless struggle for being seen. And that's why I think it's very important to look at the way that community themselves record their present and their history, right? Because again, when we talk about oppression and ways that activists are arrested or are unable to say the truth because they are afraid for their families, I think again there is an issue with who want us to see and what they want to say to us, right? And by the fact that there are this archive online of, for example, human rights violation, just to mention a few, like the Nigerian movement against police brutality, or the Sudanese movement against the Sudanese coup d'etat, and the way that this community are archiving this violation is also, you know, to start a discussion around the issue of justice. And I think this need to be present in the work of journalists and filmmakers that want to address this issue, not just to enter in this pornography of sufferance and filming, you know, like in a way, like I feel that this community are like screaming and saying, stop filming us, you know. We don't need you to come to film us. We can film ourselves, and this is our archive. Please use our archive and bring it to the mainstream media, because we are unable to, you know, to be seen there, because this issue of colonialism, this issue of control, this issue of power is also inherited in the media. So that's why I think, again, filmmaking for me it's a form of rebellion. And yeah, unfortunately, journalism today doesn't want to be decolonized. And again, you know, journalism spaces in Europe, and I work as a journalist, I know very well those editors, most of them are, you know, busy with schedules and headlines, and, you know, they know sometimes very little about those situations. And we as journalists, we as filmmakers, we have a role to play to, you know, to make those communities and people visible, but also to be sure that we have this unwritten relation of trust. And that's why I think it's very important to respect also the right of image, and to respect, especially when we talk about filmmaking, most of the time there is an issue with the representation and the ways that people like to be seen and not to be seen. Especially because in the visual world and visual representation, there is a lot of unwritten rules, culturals and so on, right? Of like, I can give you many examples, but yeah, like I was in some community where women were not allowed to be filmed without the consent of their husband, right? And I will not go there and change this rule, and I will respect it. But What I'm saying here is that we need to just not just to be aware, but also to be ready to bring this, to a next level. That is, and then what this community is looking for. How can I, through my work, also empower this community? How this community can then embed my work in their struggle, or or take my film in their protest in front of their EU Parliament and ask for humanitarian visa to get out of Libya. So that's what I think it's important for me as a filmmaker.
Okay, thank you. So now, Vik, you are also, in a way, creating visibility, but it's more hearability, I would say, because you are in the music business. You founded the label Ostinato Records, and you publish Somali music mostly from the 70s and 80s. So please, exchange with us your practice, how you managed, how you got into this kind of retro sound, and what are your ideas behind this?
Sure. So can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So yes, we release music. Well, we're mostly well known for the music we release from Somalia, because no one had really heard music from Somalia or knew anything about the country apart from what we have seen in most mainstream coverage, films and TV. But my concern was never really with music per se. Music is a vehicle. My concern was about images and image making. I just want to take people back into history a little bit. So, I believe the greater topic on this panel is we're talking about decolonization. And I think, as someone who grew up in 4 countries in Asia, 3 of which were colonized, I have a very strong sense of not only colonization, but the understanding of what decolonization really means. And, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, the most important event of the 20th century took place, in which nearly 100 countries in Asia and Africa became independent. We don't really talk about that as the central event of our lifetime, but it was. 80% of humanity became independent almost overnight, and that was the first stage of decolonization. Now, the biggest mistake a lot of these countries made, they were trying to catch up to the West. They were trying to develop, build schools, hospitals, all the things you need to do, of course, when you first have a brand new country that's coming out of colonization. But what they failed to do, all of them almost, with a small exception, South Korea, is that none of them built image-making industries. Now, what do I mean by image-making industries? I mean industries that encompass, of course, traditional media, your newspapers, your advertising, your public relations, your record labels, your film industries. All of these things that are supremely formidable in the West, and that give the West a monopoly on interpretation, and give the West a monopoly on image-making around the world. So when we talk about decolonization, yes, we can talk about physical and material decolonization, but of course colonization, European colonization, was the most unique conquest because it was a spiritual conquest, one which captured and stole and developed a monopoly on image making. And it is within our grasp as people from Asia and Africa to lay siege to that monopoly of interpretation, to build our own image-making industries, to compete. We have to compete. This is an area we compete in so many areas. You hear about, the greatest airport now is not in the West, and this great university is not in the West. And these are all fantastic things. But none of us, really in Asia and Africa, in the former colonial world, have built image-making industries to combat what I believe is the foremost power of colonialism, which is image-making. So what I do with my music is just one small part of the greater And so when we take music, what we're doing is we're wielding music as an image-making tool. Because once I put out an album of Somali music of a certain era, their pre-Civil War era, for example, already, and of course then I use my knowledge of the media, how global media works. I used to work in journalism. I've worked with, Western news organizations at senior level, so I understand how news works. And I understand how to use music to then seize that monopoly of interpretation and transform these music albums as simply a storytelling tool to turn these countries' entire global news story into something else entirely. And to me, the success of an album is not the record sales or any of that. To me is, have we succeeded in the news cycle, in the global news cycle, in the image-making corridors of our world? And when I'm talking about image-making in the West, I'm really talking about two cities that dominated. We're talking about the Anglosphere, New York and London. I mean, as formidable and sophisticated as French or German media happens to be, we can be honest, they are in a language that the whole world does not speak or communicate or do professional business in. So we're really talking about the Anglosphere. And do these music albums then create a whole different set of images in
Yeah, okay, so now, Laura, you are working with and for the artists. You are a person who is supporting through producing structures. So please share with us how you manage to identify your fields of action within the Kulturbehörde, the cultural office, and how you inject your ideas there and make them work like you obviously do.
Thank you also for the invitation and to meet you inspiring people. Yeah, I work for the Ministry of Culture in Hamburg, and I am for intercultural projects, which means normally I have a yearly amount of money to spend on intercultural projects. And I have a jury who helps me to pick out the ones we are going to give money to. And then I created a new program which is called Intro, and I suppose this is why I'm sitting here today. It started like after 2015, when more and more people were coming to Germany. We got a little money for the city to do like projects with and for refugees. And after a year, I noticed like the money is not really ending up where it should be, because yeah, most of the projects which we funded were projects local from Hamburg and people who were willing to help, but in the end, not the persons who were addressed really had something from it. So I rethought it, everything, and did a little research and looked in other cities how they, what projects they did. And in Berlin, they have a project called Weltoffenes Berlin, which still exists. And I did research and talked to my colleague over there and went to the minister here in Hamburg and told him I want to do something new and a program for artists who had to leave their origin countries, and in what way ever, and help them really to start working in Hamburg to get into the structures. So they should get a fellowship with together with a cultural institution, for example like Kampnagel, and get a monthly payment of this fellowship for 1 year, so they have really time to work on their own projects, but within an institution. So they can build up a network, and they can build up, they can see how the structures are working. And also we have a workshop program combined with it, in which workshoppers, coaches teach how to apply for funding in Germany, how that all works, how to get into the Künstlersozialkasse, to get insurance when you're an artist, and so on. So this is one side of the program. The other side is also to look at the institutions, which is the point you were talking about earlier, which confers to the other things were said, that the cultural institutions that are part of the program should look at their own structures and also be open enough to get to know artists from other parts of the world and their way of working. And in the end, my aim is always that projects can happen together, and that, for the people and the artists who came here, they can really build up their own way of working in Germany. And what I experienced, which is most important, is to really look at the system you're already in and know your frame and know what you can change in there, to do good research and get your tools together, and then to always remember that every system is made by human beings, and also decisions are made by human beings and can change by human beings too. So you just have to be community, communicate with each other, and so you can also widen structures and implement new programs. Thank you.
I would like to add one very smart and clever thought which is involved in this intro fellowship, because many migrants or refugees, when they arrive in Germany, with or without artistic background, have no access to the working market. So, and this fellowship, and this is why I think this is a very clever, and it should really be like a model for general institutional or work, or also like cultural offices, because it's a fellowship. So when you have Duldung, that means when you don't have the work permission and not the, or when your asylum case is not fully decided, and you don't have access to the working market, that means you are always on pause. And this is what I hear from many migrants or refugees, that even after arriving at the place maybe where you even wanted to go, you still can't really start, because you are always in this limbo and always in this waiting. And this is what I really like about this intro fellowship, that it offers immediately. So with or without work permission, you can be an active part in the cultural field, and you can use the time to already learn and empower yourself and learn all the tricks how to get the funding here. And so this is what I wanted to add to this.
Can I add also that if you already have a working permission but your visa is not it's not clear if it will be prolonged, you need to earn money, and also this you can do with the intro fellowship. Then you can not use it as a fellowship, but you can use it and to show to the visa behörden that you have an income, which is also very important. So yeah, we try to keep it very flexible, but that was a lot of work inside the structures to make it possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is why you are also here with us now on this panel, because I think this is also a kind of activist attitude inside a kind of Kulturbehörde. And Vik already dropped very many times the big word of decolonization. And actually, I think this kind of activism also inside the cultural offices is very important, that there's also the awareness and understanding of the people's situation, and that sometimes this missing documents causes also lots of stress, and stress is always not so good for the creativity. So this is one way of making things work or accessible. Yeah. Vik, when are you still here? Okay. I wanted to catch up on what on your strong input. You also, or what you didn't talk about yet, but this was what came to my mind when I read about what you are doing and I listened to the music that I really enjoyed. I was first also thinking about, when I hear Somalia, I have all these images in my head, and now I listen to the music, and this is a big contrast to the images I got put in my head as a Western person growing up here. But I also thought about the young generations in Somalia who maybe also didn't have access to their own cultural heritage. So, and when it comes to decolonization, this kind of awareness of your own cultural heritage, this is, I think, also a very important step.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think a lot of people don't, right? So, I mean, I was born in India, I grew up in Asia. I still often have to go through various other channels to learn about the history of Indian music. It's not very readily available to me via my family, my parents, or any of that. So, I have to go through Western channels to have to go to a gallery in New York to see old statues from 12th century India. They're not in India. apart from the image making and all this, kind of things I was talking about, at the very bare, raw, emotional aspect of this is confidence, is self-esteem, is knowing that you come from a place that is rich, that has music, that has culture, that can be loved and admired all over the world. It's knowing you don't come, from some poor, war-torn country, which doesn't, that's 30 years of Somalia's history. It's got thousands of years that are more than that. India's in history is independence in 1947. These countries are babies. They're babies still trying to learn, walk, and talk. And let's put things into perspective. And for Somalia, you don't even have to go back into ancient history. You just go back a few years before the Civil War, and you have yourself the real Somalia, a country of culture and music, and a country that was so central to the crossroads of the trading world between Europe, Asia, and Africa that its music is literally the story of our modern world. And for people in the diaspora to learn this, and then to be able to connect with their past and their parents' generation, especially because I would keep hearing from people that, my parents fled Somalia during the war, and then they would tell me about the music. But what can you learn? If your mom and dad tell you about the past, as a kid, you're like, oh yeah, mom and dad, thank you for telling me. But you can't really feel it. You can't connect it. When you hear it, and not just hear it, people can hear Somali music, but when you hear that older music, you hear the aesthetic from those old cassettes, there is a nostalgia and an emotional awakening. And to me, the most important thing is an instilling of confidence. I want people from the global south to be confident in who they are, where they come from. I want them to stride this world with the same confidence that you see Westerners striding this world. And why do Westerners stride this world with confidence? Because their image is intact, and it's powerful, and it's positive. So again, it all comes down to this. Control your image. Have your allies, work with your image. And it'll instill this confidence and self-esteem that allow you to do great things in this world. We can't do anything if not only if your people in the country are not confident, your country is not confident, your political power is not confident. At the very raw human level, this is what it is. The colonization was a complete evisceration of this confidence of people. Not knowing, how the world will treat you because you think the world sees you as a threat. Knowing that I don't come from that place. I come from a place that is now, whose music is now making people dance and capturing hearts and minds all over the world. That's how you build confidence. That's how I found confidence. Not only, to me, it wasn't only about learning about my own histories in Asia. I gain confidence when I know a country in Africa or the Caribbean is doing its thing, is revitalizing its history, is promoting its music. When I hear, when I see people from Mali producing beautiful music, it gives me confidence because I say, listen, we are all of this world. We are all of this world because we're all fighting for very similar things. And at the end of the day, if the music can instill confidence in people, I want everyone to enjoy it. I want to transform images. I want it to command a news cycle. I wanted to do all those wonderful things that are part of the policy and our mission as a label. But on a very raw human level, if it can just instill confidence in people who need it, that's probably the most important aspect of what music especially can do, because it's timeless.
And what do you think, like in terms of kind of appropriation in music and in fashion? Many the Justin Bieber suddenly sounds like Wizkid or Burna Boy. So like this kind of copying different artistic practice or aesthetics from the African continent, but through a Western music industry, like a person like Justin Bieber or big brands like Nike, Adidas, they also suddenly show Samoan patterns printed on stuff. So what is your, do you have any strategy how to, do you think, okay, when they let them copy because we got it first, or you think, we want our credits?
you are not doing, again, an image-making service, then yeah, you're doing it wrong. But I do not believe that the mingling of cultures, you know, in our ever-shrinking global world, well, now our little more divided world because of the pandemic, but our ever-shrinking world as it once was, music is going to travel, art is going to travel, and I would love to see it blend more and more and more as much as it can, with the caveat that it needs to come with the historical, empathetical understanding of where you're getting it from. You know, read a history book about the place before you take you start to delve into its culture. Read a history book written by an author from that country, you know, or an author who empathizes or comes from a similar history as that country. Read a book before you do that. And then, if you are a mainstream mega artist and you are taking something from somewhere, make sure that that is then an avenue for people to, again, an avenue for an image to be transformed. If you're not doing that, then yes, I think that's incorrect, and I think I don't think the whole idea that people should not take anything, and even if you don't credit it and this, that. I mean, this is going to happen. This is our world. Our world, we mingle, we mix, and we've been doing this for forever and ever and ever. And the East African coast is, to me, the biggest testament of how many cultures can mingle and create something wonderful. So I think appropriation, the discussion for appropriation has its place. I think it can sometimes get a little bit overdrawn, and I think we just have to approach things with empathy and understanding. And like I said, just read a book before you do it, and make sure that it's an avenue that changes images or at least pushes people towards the culture you have borrowed something from.
Maite, hello? Is she still there? Is the connection still strong? Because I would like to hear her thoughts on this too.
You said Meité?
Yes, genau. Because hello. Sorry, I was confused because I didn't see your picture here. We have one monitor, and I didn't see you. Because I would like to hear your thoughts on this topic too. How you, what you think of this when big fashion industry brands who are also responsible for the kind of fashion industry that you were also describing earlier, this kind of fast fashion and blah, blah, blah. And when they are starting to recognize, oh yeah, there's also some interesting emerging young designers from the African continent, and then they like kind of appropriate their aesthetics.
I think that for a long time, appropriation has been the way to do things, and the Western world took it for granted. I understand what Najid said, you have to give love, to be in a love atmosphere, but sometimes it's really hurtful because we have so little resources from where we work. And when you do what you have to do, you don't get anything from it, but people who are mainstream can show it. And it's really complicated. But I think that the challenge is to find the right people to collaborate with, because alone you cannot do anything. I live in Mali, and everything is like 10 times more difficult. And we are talking about decolonization in the context I live in right now is very interesting, because in Mali we had a coup a few months ago, and in Western Africa, Mali has become a kind of model because we are resisting to France. We are saying no to France. We want to think about our own social, political, and economy. We want to find a solution locally. Don't get involved, and it's really interesting. The contradiction is that it is a military coup, and we are in a country where there is war now, and it's very interesting. So all this situation is feeding also our inspiration, because we have the feeling that we can make things differently, and everybody has the feeling that you are a resistant in your own way. interesting because there is like a rupture with the mainstream, with the medias, the way France 24 or all these medias are commenting the political situation in Mali doesn't concern us anymore because there's a kind of togetherness to think our future. And it's very interesting because you have the same situation in Guinea now. And in different, I'm not saying that the coup is the best thing, but I think that we need to rethink democracy, the way democracy is imposed to our countries, because it is a way that it is defending Western interests. And I think that we need to have a real debate about that, because you cannot be decolonized when all your structure is based on a model that is coming from elsewhere. We have been told that we have been independent for 60 years, but I'm sorry, we are still dependent, 100%. And the Western world is just working with people that accept the situation. The painful thing is that so many people are understanding what is going on, but they made the choice to defend their own economic interests and forget the rest. So we cannot fight poverty in this context. We have to be realistic. We have to know to debate. We have to put the situation, to explain it clearly. Everybody knows what is going on in Haiti, in Somalia, in Mali. You know, there are so many resources, and sometimes when I hear that we find fuel in Cote d'Ivoire or in other countries, I feel afraid. I'm like, oh, maybe war is going there, because when there's resources, there's war. There's war because you need to negotiate. You need to give, to give up so many things, and the opinion in the Western world does not know clearly what is going on, because they are also dependent on the main medias. You understand the world according to what your medias tells you. You don't go to the countries, you don't talk to people from the countries. And if that situation doesn't change, migration will stop, because it is a quest for something better, or something to think, an illusion of something that is better. And you have to fight that illusion. And when decolonization is, according to me, to be realistic, to have the clear lecture of the situation we are facing here and elsewhere. So fashion is not different from music, from writing, from filmmaking, and we need to have a clear vision of where we are now, what we have, like resources, cultural resources, historic resources, and where we want to go with all the tools we have, and the education we have from the Western world. I think that it is a lot he's talking about is, what we've learned. We love music from everywhere. It's a kind, we should have really bridges, but not a kind of, I don't know how to call it, a kind of illusion, because everything is based on illusion now, of happiness, of justice, so we have to be, I think that we are in a situation that we need to have a clear lecture of the situation in order to be decolonized.
Sara, I think many people know a lot about what is going on in the world, even through mainstream media. But there's also, especially within the Western society, very strongly also in the German society, a big kind of ignorance still towards all these topics, or to also, for example, in 2015, when many people arrived in Germany, many Germans considered the new arrivals as like an empty page, like as if there is no rich cultural history, as if people are not individuals and don't have their own story. So when you do documentary, you try to break through this kind of ignorance, right? Because what Vik was describing with like creating the own narratives, the own networks, you do it from a different perspective, but I think maybe you have both the same aim when it comes to what you want to achieve, right?
While I was listening, I was imagining this image of the Sudanese woman that we saw in 2019 on the top of the car in Khartoum protesting. That image went viral. And when that woman, Hala Salah, was on that car, all the Western media started to speak about Sudan, right? Because that was the image that we wanted to see. The Muslim woman that was protesting against dictatorship on top of a car, and you know, that was exactly the image that editors were looking for. But then when you go through the history of Sudan and women's struggle, the women in Sudan started to vote in 1964, right? 1964, like even before Switzerland. And you know, women's struggle in Sudan is much longer than that picture, right? But we didn't want it to know that history. We just stopped on that image of the woman on the car. The same thing is happening with this so-called migration crisis. We would like to see this kind of footage from the boat in the central Mediterranean, pack of people coming over, and then stop. These people have no past, no future. They are just stuck in a boat in the middle of the sea and asking for help. For me, there are, you know, that's why I think it's problematic, and that's why, as journalists and filmmaker, we should also, you know, question these images, in the sense that these images really serve a specific purpose of dehumanizing, because we don't want to hear their story, we don't want to know where they're coming from, we don't want even to know their names. It's enough to know that the hundreds of people that are packed on a boat, and you know, there is not even that what will happen after. You know, we stop there. And if you look, for example, at mainstream media in Italy, they are still using that picture. So they are still stuck in that image of like the boat pack of immigrant coming to Europe, right? And I think that also serve to a Western need to show that we are useful because we are helping those people that are, you know, struggling and asking for our help, you know, and all this also humanitarianism, right? Behind this going and filming and, you know, showing this white savior in the sea trying to, you know, rescue refugees. And I saw this a lot in Africa, especially with the NGOs that were trying to communicate to their audiences back in Europe and collecting, you know, money and funds using the picture of the black kids dying. And then, you know, the audiences in Africa, they were saying, hey guys, stop with that, you know, we are tired to see that, you know. We are tired to see a picture of people dying of HIV. Because actually today our activists, the HIV activists are dancing, our mother have kids, and you know, you impose us that image, and we are sick of that image, you know. So I think that's why it's interesting to investigate you know, this dynamic of power when we talk about image making, and also to, you know, question this idea that, okay, we're going to be the voice of the voiceless, you know. Stop with this bullshit. People are deliberately silent by our policies, that they won't want them to come to Europe, or that they don't want them to be part of our society because their ideas are not convenient to our structure, right? So that's why I think it's the role of filmmaking and media and arts is exactly that rebellion I was saying, to interrogate how much this power dynamics inherited in our society we need to break through and build something new. Not just for our audiences, because again, they are tired of this, you know. They're not watching this anymore, so we really need to think on another way, you know, to build this form of solidarity, cohesion, but also, yeah, image making and penetrate through mainstream media, you know. And a lot of editors, they will tell me, yeah, you know, but we are used to see refugees pity stories and stuff like that. Yes, because you want that story, right? Actually, I bring you stories of struggle. I bring you story of resistance, of courage, of, you know, people that have been crossing and they are strong enough to be here today. But you call them vulnerable. Stop with that word. Stop to say they are marginal. Because if you keep that language, then you don't break that power relation that is inherited in our society.
Before we go to the final statements, there's also always, I forgot to mention it in the beginning, if one of you in the audience feels like, there's an urgent need inside of me, I need to drop this question, feel free, raise your hand. We can organize this that with the mic, even with COVID, that it's safe, so don't feel that you're interrupted or something. You can just give a sign. For me, I was when I think that many of the first of all, I think there are no innocent spaces. So theaters are not innocent. There's also a long tradition of racism in theaters everywhere. But I think what is a little bit underlooked is the effect that these massive colonial exhibitions that were very popular in Europe more than 100 years ago kind of are still creating a certain gaze. Because the one thing is the visual representation, but the other thing is also the gaze. And I think that these massive and very popular millions of people in Europe went to see these colonial exhibitions. And I was not shocked about that fact, but when I read that I think it was in 1907, there was a big exhibition in Paris, and the Surrealist movement, the artists, organized with the Communist Party a counter exhibition, which was not so super popular and overrun by people, but it was a big effort they did, and also they took strong action. So when I read about this, it came to my mind that also this story of activism in the arts also has a long tradition. And there's also, I sometimes wonder a little bit, or I'm asking also myself, and I drop this question now to you, how we can make this allyships, this kind of artist really challenging the society, and you talked about rebellion, we talked about resistance a little bit, how we can make these struggles also in the, was ist das, in der Verbindung, in der, yeah. No, the relation, no, the continuity, that was the thing. Oh, heavy breath. The so, and I think this is something that is also always falls under the table. So, and every time we pick it up new. So, do you think that there are maybe ways we can also maybe use the digital archives that are now building up to make all these interactions also more visible?
Did you know the story of the Congolese artist that went to Paris Museum and
Yes,
sold
I'm
that?
a big fan. Mama Zulu,
Right?
right? I'm a big fan. I have a
So
T-shirt.
that's
Yes.
what it worked, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what I'm saying by rebellion.
Does everybody know this Congolese activist? He is going to Western museums and steals artifacts. He's like bringing them back. And he doesn't do it secretly or in the night. He does it during the day so that he gets stopped and arrested, that he can have a court on this, because he wants to make this a big topic. And so I'm a big fan of his work. Hopefully we will work with him in the future projects. But yeah.
Yeah, so this is a form of rebellion, you know, that bring that contra-narrative into mainstream media, because he made mainstream media to speak about this, right? By his act of rebellion. So that's what I'm saying. We need to create this rebellion space of being visible, of being against those norms, to create a form of like narrative that is owned by those artists. So, for example, I think he's on a court case in France, and probably, I mean, he will lose the case, but he made media talk about him and the concept, right? Or the people in Berlin on decolonizing Berlin, and they want to change the name of the street in Berlin. Like, for me, this is really a way to, you know, own the narrative and to impose, you know? Although this will take maybe years, but it's a little step that can, you know, that can go in that direction. Because I'm not sure that the mainstream media are ready to get these ideas on board, because again, they are ruled by, you know, powers dynamic and money that is, you know, sometimes corporations and arm seller, and they clearly have other interests. But I do see that social media can help, but again, I think there is another problem with social media, that is data colonialism, and the fact that at the end of the day, this material online can disappear at any moment, and again, is not owned by the activists or by those you know, voices, but is owned by companies that clearly have other interests. And then again, you know, it's a question of power, and infrastructure is not again built for people to, you know, use it as they want, but is built for companies to, you know, dig into this society and collect data. And especially today, I think in Africa there is a big issue with this because some countries do not have privacy laws. So these companies are definitely, you know, using this way to collect information, data, share it with governments, and so on. So yeah, I don't trust platform 100% because of this reason of, you know, colonialism. And again, it's just a repetition of colonial power. But I do think that there is a space, but that space of appearance needs to be also on a real level, you know, on occupying space. Shouldn't be like asked to enter, should be occupied, I think.
Yeah, that is one way to occupy the space, but okay. Okay, then I don't ask Laura because she lost her mic, but it's okay. Yeah, that's super good.
Sorry.
Please raise it.
I just thought, you said burning question. That's why I said I want to really contribute to this. So I'm really, with all the topic that you're talking about the media, it's really, really contagious. Why I say that, the contagion, what we see in those pictures that Sarah mentioned there, that you see either a child hang somewhere with running nose and all these things, it's very contagious. And why I say that, it's contagious to us, diaspora, that is me. So I come from Kenya, so I come here in Europe, and I've never seen anything like this. And I'm thinking, oh, is that my country? Is that Africa? I mean, Kenya is really small, and I'm always told I'm from Africa. And I think I'm going to carry this whole Africa with me. I don't even know the whole Africa. Fine. The images are here. Okay, I've lived here over almost 20 years. And the situation I'm saying is contagious is that recently I started African Women in Trade, and I started seeing what things they were doing, and I found myself gasping and said, oh, you do this? How did you do? I mean, I realized I've become a European looking at my own content like we cannot do things. And yet, how did I come to that? I was really mad at myself, really angry with myself to underestimate what my continent, my country can do, and I'm fighting that now because it's so important to understand these images is something that we see us coming from Africa and everybody else who is coming already from the where you're showing these images. And I like what the gentleman from Somali was talking about these images. It comes to me in this idea. And then something else that we should not forget is the social media. It's a very powerful platform where we can show the image. And now I'm taking up us like diaspora. I am now rebelling, showing now exactly, I'm not even going to rebel here, I'm going to rebel in my country, in my continent, and tell them it's your fault. Your image is so wrong up here. How can we fix that? So I wanted to throw that in there. The social media can also be a part of it, and it's very contagious. We have to somehow stop these photos. I'm just so tired of seeing all these photos everywhere.
Okay, and genau. Yeah, Wax, please, this one more question, and then we do final statements, and then we are already. But yeah, the lady over there, she raised hand.
Thank you. Do you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you. My name is Rufine. So I'm coming from Freiburg. I'm part of this media. It's called Netzwerk Medien Vielfalt. I think there's a group which does almost the same like us here. Maybe we should connect later. So I wanted to connect to what Joy just said. I am also working with a project in Cameroon that is a music project where we try to show the people which music content is in the country, try to highlight the content. And as we started this project, people also in Cameroon, they were always like, oh, is it a Cameroonian artist? Oh, he is Cameroonian. So they were all always surprised because people always just listen to the music coming from the West. So, but now they are trying to reconnect with the music of the country when the media is growing, so everybody knows it, and now they are much more of like Cameroonian music first and so on. And that brings me to another point which I was thinking as Majid was talking, because this is also a discussion which is going on a lot in the country, because he said, okay, show pictures, because of the pictures that are shown or sent out of the countries, they also come from the country, from the people who live there. And most of the time, the people will say, why should we show good, nice pictures while everything that we are seeing is also bad? So how can we not just send out or distribute the reality, because there are also some difficult situations going on in the country, and that's why maybe it's also one part of the thing is that maybe it is far more than the positive news that is coming. So this is a thought that I had as he was also saying. And the third point that I had is another discussion which is going on is the fact of romanticizing the countries, African countries or Africa, through always putting maybe the music first or the art sometimes first. There are people who will criticize because he said also Somalia is some years ago, I don't know, he said 5 years ago, that was the that is Somalia. But people, in this discussion, people would say, okay, but Somalia is all what is happening, and maybe only focusing on that point is a way of romanticizing the Africa which has been done through many years also by the colonizers. I will take the example, for example, also of the album by Beyonce. You know, you all know this. Africa is King, or this album, where she mixed she put really, she brought up the beauty of the African culture, I would say. She showed like different cultures which many Africans didn't even know. I went back to read again the story of Mansa Musa and so on, just to remember this story and so on. So people went back to look for the culture and so on and so forth. But the people still came up with the fact that, okay, but there is a lot more struggles going on in the countries, and we always fuck, because many Africans were also amazed. Oh, this is really nice, which is going on, and this, she did it well. But people were saying, oh, stop, you just like this. But people are carrying on this tradition of romanticizing your countries and not taking you out of this bubble. So this is just a thought, some thought that I had listening to it.
Okay, thank you for your input as well.
Nadine, just a second.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, Vikran is not Somali. So, because someone mentioned, Joy mentioned that he ain't Somali, he's Indian, he's Asian, okay?
Okay, Nima, you have one more, because we are now running a little bit out of time. I would say, okay, 1, 2 final questions. Yeah?
My point again on social media, I think social media is a very powerful tool that we ignore at this moment. And we, sometimes what we do is we try to mitigate online informations on irregular migration and so on. At the same time, when we do this, we realize that people are key into this particular platform, Facebook or Twitter, as their source of information. And if there is any tool in place that could fact check whatever comes in regards to migration, I think that could be also a point where we can now use that tool to mitigate misinformation on migration online.
I'm just interested. I mean, one of the speakers actually was much more elaborating on music and decolonization. Like, he also gave an example in Mogadishu that the African history is not much more portrayed, but a lot are found in the museums, as he said. And for example, one could use the Mogadishu radio and portray such things. My question actually is like, what are the connection, or how does music impact to decolonization, or how can one use music to tell stories on the past?
Vik, did you hear that question?
I did not. Could you repeat the question, please?
Wait, Nima, sorry, he didn't really, I think the question was to Vik and he didn't, can you please just repeat the end?
I'll just summarize it. The question is, what impact is music doing to decolonization, or let's say, how can we use music as a tool to tell our stories in the past?
Right, so that's what we do at the record label. So, you know, if you want to tell the story of how central East Africa has been to our world, you want to tell the story of how Europe, Africa, and Asia for centuries, if not millennia, met, begin, and end in East Africa. I believe the best evidence we have for that history, I mean, we are always burdened with, the burden of proof, unfortunately, always falls on us, right? Someone tells us you have no history, someone says this part of the world has no history, then the burden of proof, you know, this is the dilemma of racism. The burden of proof often falls on us to then prove these histories. And I believe music, if you use it consider you're making an argument about, for example, I'm going to talk about East Africa because that's where we worked a lot. You know, part of my fascination with the music was because it is the greatest evidence we have to a very non-Eurocentric understanding of history, to understanding that East Africa, more so than Europe, more so than almost anywhere, has been more central because of its geography, its immense cosmopolitanism, its incredibly welcoming nature, where the world is mingled for such a long time. And how do I prove that? I mean, we can go into archives and look at all the books and all the different voyages and the trading system of what is today Djibouti being at the very center of this very strategic trading area, you know, being the center of these waterways that connect 3 continents. But how does that history manifest? It manifests in the music, because then if you can listen to the music of the Somali coast, the Swahili coast, of Djibouti, I mean, you hear the history in that music. You hear the 15 cultures that have come through, including the cultures that I come from, and the cultures of the Southern Mediterranean and the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. It moves our Atlantic-centric understanding of world history to the Indian Ocean. And I think music can play a very powerful role in that. I mean, I can think of several other examples. If you want to tell the story of Haiti, you know, you want to really tell the history of Haiti, you can tell it through its music. You know, Haiti you know, we know its history. We know its history as the first country to overthrow the shackles of slavery and build a proud, independent Black republic. What we also don't know about Haiti is that during the slavery era, so many peoples from Africa were brought to Haiti. A very large diversity of peoples from across the continent were enslaved and brought to Haiti. And its music is really a cosmopolitan mixture of so many different cultures from West, Southeast, Central Africa. And if you want to recall, you know, you want to tell the story of slavery in Haiti, you can tell a lot about what happened on that island from the music, because the music has rhythms that were born in all over the continent. The music has so much in it. So, you know, to decolonize our history, to center our histories, I believe music offers the greatest evidence to the argument we are trying to make. And the beautiful thing about music is it's indisputable. If I play you songs from the East African coast that have 15 cultures, and I tell you that this part of the world was central, more so than almost anywhere in the world, how can you dispute it? The music is indisputable. It's the most powerful evidence we have. So I would treat it as evidence to an argument about what history actually was. And I think that is the most powerful way to decolonize our understandings of history, or at least inspire the curiosity to do so, because music can make people very curious about a lot of things.
Okay, because the time is now really so, it's finished actually. So I don't know, I don't want to rob your words, but if you want, each one can do a short final statement. If you want, you need a mic. You want to use mine? You got it back. Perfect. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, just 2 sentences maybe, because there were so many different topics tonight, which was very interesting, I think.
Yeah, art and culture, you know, it's so big, you know.
Which helps all of them is to have spaces like this and to really listen to each other and to spread and exchange knowledge, because, yeah, some topics are quite new and some movements are quite new, and to build alliances and networks, most importantly, and to be consistent.
I would say to bring the political quest and to interrogate that civic space of, you know, to create that civic imagination, to interrogate the citizenship issue, for example. Because when we become citizen, then we have the right to exist. But when we are denied citizen, we disappear. So that's why we should speak about the political question, you know?
Next time we talk about artistic citizenship,
Yeah.
because this is a topic that
So
is
yeah.
also very interesting for me. Yes?
And arts give us that freedom of imagination, you know, freedom to exist beyond national border, behind national identity, behind paper. And that's why I think to bring that political quest is that, you know, the importance of that relationship between the audience and the people that are being watched because they want to exist.
Are my Zoomies still there? Yes, hello. Okay. Vik, do you also have some final statements? Our time is running, it doesn't need to be, you said some.
I would just say, if you have the volition and the will, build an image-making industry in your country, wherever you are based. Build something that's sovereign, build something that breaks, whatever it might be, breaks the monopoly of interpretation, because it's been a very small part of the world that's been interpreting the greater world for a very long time, and we need more storytellers from the global south who come from a similar history and empathize with it, to build these image-making industries, whatever it might be, a record label, a film industry, an advertising firm, a public relations firm, a newspaper, you name it. If you can do that, all power to you.
Yes, Meité, the final word is on you.
Final word is that decolonization is to read between the lines and to give space to the people who are living the situation, to hear the one that have not heard so far, that are crossing the Mediterranean and that are dying. The one that are trying from the south, the one that succeed to cross, to hear them, to look at them, and to consider them human, because they are, and they matter.
Yeah, that was it. Thanks everyone for my guests who joined via Zoom, the guests who were here in person, and all of you here in this space. Thank you.